Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. And in this video, I have Pilar Newton. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my name's Pilar Newton. I am an animator, and I'm an independent animator. And I also am an assistant professor at City College of New York, and just spreading love of animation.
Yeah. So you're from Flatbush, Brooklyn. How was it growing up?
You know, growing up in Flatbush, like during the 80s was just, it was just iconic. Like we were the original Fat Albert gang. Like we, we would build go-karts and clubhouses and run around and play basketball. We would play baseball and football in the street. And I was actually the worst athletically, you know, so of course I say we, I use the term very loosely because I was usually the one getting benched.
Right.
So we were like absolutely like the original Fat Albert gang.
So like all the movies I grew up watching in the 90s, that's what y'all actually did in those movies, like making go-karts and stuff. Yeah, I never actually made go-karts. Like I just saw like people make them on movies.
Yeah, like we actually made a couple of go-karts. Like it got to the point where if everybody contributed a piece and we had like one go-kart. But if somebody got mad, like I'm taking my flag back, and somebody else, this kid had like a fake engine that looked like a really like a realistic looking engine that looked like plastic. It's like I'm taking my engine back, and another kid's like I'm taking my flag back. It's like no, if you get into a fight, then everybody takes your cool stuff back. So like, that was like the thing, you know.
So you had to learn like interpersonal communications.
Yeah, no, it was amazing, and it was really funny. And then like we had everything was sports because my sister and I grew up. We were the only girls, and it was like a huge just gang of boys. So we were always like accepted. Like we were one of the boys. I mean, I would get made fun of like, you're a girl, you can't play, or something like that. Like we were we were not like excluded. Like we were totally welcome. Like you're like the more the merrier. Like we need a first base, someone on first base, but you suck, Pilar. So like we need someone that can actually play. You know, you know. So I was always like relegated to the out. Yeah, 100%. And since we played on the sidewalk, it was like the field was like this wide and like this long. It was really fun.
Right. So, what are, and in addition to what you said, what are some of your best childhood memories?
You know, like my whole memory, like, was growing up while loving cartoons and growing up around kids that love cartoons. So, you know, and so my friends and I would play like Inspector Gadget and like, you know, and my dog was Brain, I was Penny. And, you know, my friend Cece was Inspector Gadget, and we would like run around and be like, oh no, you know, we would just like all afternoon, you know, and just like being kids, like being able to be kids was really amazing. And then Saturday morning cartoons just informed my whole life. It even got to the point where Saturday morning cartoons informed like how I dressed, like, you know, like I loved Punky Brewster, especially. I loved the TV show, the sitcom Punky Brewster, and then they adapted it into a cartoon. And I loved that show. Like, that's why I wore like bright yellow Converse. Like, I mean, like straight up the way Punky Brewster dressed, that like bled right into high school. Like, and just like even to this day, you know, like how I dress. Like, well, right now I'm a little like, you know, kind of representing the Ottawa Animation Festival here, rocking my blazer, but like, if you see me on like on a normal day, I have like colorful sneakers and, you know, if you could see my feet.
And what is your cultural makeup? And that's not only to say what's your ethnicity, but also what is the culture of where you grew up and the uniqueness of where you're from?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I come from, I'm a mixed heritage. So my father's like Anglo, white, Scottish ancestry. My mom's Black, was born in New Rochelle. Like, so it was really, you know, but what was really amazing is that, and I don't know if I'm answering your question in any way, shape, or form. I am from a mixed heritage, but, you know, my mom used to say, like, you know, you could go into a job interview, for instance, and say, I'm half, you know, I'm half Scottish heritage, you know, but she's like, they look at you, you're Black, you know, and so it's like grew up like just I'm Black, like
Yeah.
I'm proud of every part of me,
Yeah.
And what was unique about where I was from, I grew up in like OG Flatbush, and just you didn't really see like a lot of cartoonists walking around.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even meet another cartoonist until I was in pretty much high school, and so it was just really cool being like the only cartoonist,
Yeah.
Like, so it was like really cool. Like, okay, you're the only cartoonist. Even when I was in junior high school, I was like the best cartoonist in junior high school. It's like, so
nice.
Everybody's like, Pilar, even teachers were like, I need a poster. It was really cool. And wait, I don't know if did I answer your question in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite tradition from growing up, like with your family?
Oh, wow. Favorite tradition. So many. I have to say, I mean, honestly, Christmas, I mean, just like, actually Christmas and birthdays. And the reason being, I have so many friends that are like, oh, I never had good birthdays, or I don't really have positive experiences about Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. And no matter what was going on, like birthdays, for instance, no matter what was going on, like my mom could be like furious at me because I got a call from school, or I got like, or I didn't do my homework, or I failed yet another math test, and okay, you're grounded. Da, 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 da. No matter what was going on, the morning of your birthday, you were special for that day. Like even if my mom could be like completely mad at me about I can't even think of an example, but when you wake up the morning of your birthday, all that is put aside, and it's like that's your day, you're special. And it's really amazing. Like one year, I woke up, we had a brownstone with the backyard. So I woke up and my dad had built an entire jungle gym. Nice. You know those God, they're shaped like hexagons, and it's like a dome. So, but we call them monkey bars, so it's like my dad like built like either a jungle gym or monkey bars. I woke up and he had spent the night assembling it, and it was like a massive. I have like a picture of it, so I'll have to send it. And that was like my favorite birthday, like just waking up and seeing this is like, wow, And then another year, and this was like, I had just graduated junior high school, and this was the summer between junior high school and high school. It was my birthday, and my mom said, we're going to Great Adventure. And it was just amazing. And there I was in my yellow Converse, getting, going down like Splash Mountain. No, that's Disney, the flume and everything. So just traditionally, like we always had just amazing birthdays, no matter what was going on. Like that was like your day. And I always was made to feel like special. Not that it's like, it sort of sounds selfish, like, oh, I'm made to feel special, but like, I think it counts, like you have that day where it's your day,
Yeah.
And Christmas too, no matter what was going on, like it was like, that was just a great day to just be together and be happy and be family. Like, nobody ever got mad at one another on Christmas. Then the next day, then it was like, okay, we can stop being nice to each other. I love it. So holidays were always like, especially Christmas and birthdays, like holidays are always like very positive.
That's wonderful.
And the Jackson 5 Christmas album, the Jackson 5 Christmas album was on rotation. Like my sister actually has the record, the physical record. She still has it, but we knew exactly where the record skips were. So, right when we knew, like the record, like right when we knew where the skip was, it would be like, have yourself, like you just like tap the record right in time, and the needle jumps the skip, and then you don't miss a beat. Like what?
Right.
So that's my Jackson 5 memory. Sorry, go ahead.
That's funny. So let's get into your journey in art and animation during your childhood. What was that?
Well, actually, my mom always reminds me of the fact, and my one great regret in life is that I don't still have this drawing, but I have the memory of the drawing, is that my mom said that at the age of like 2.5, I drew the first there's always that memory of like the first recognizable thing you drew.
Yeah.
And I actually drew, it was like a lady with a pocketbook. And it was like, literally, it's like you could draw, it's like the stick figure with the hair and like the little pocketbook. And my mom was like blown away. She even wrote it like in her handwriting, lady with pocketbook. And it was sort of like, then it sort of became apparent that, oh, you know, she likes to draw. So at about like the age of 7, like my parents signed me up for art classes. This is with a professional artist, Pilar, in a real art studio in Soho. And it was really amazing. And I was learning how to shade, and I was learning how to shade like a sphere and like light sources. I was learning gesture drawing and how to draw, like we would copy paintings of figures, and I was drawing like nude models, like from paintings. Like we were like looking at, you know, paintings, and I was drawing like nude figures and painting scenes. Like there's like a painting of a sailboat that I did that my mom keeps everything. So
right,
if you go to my mom's place, it's like the art gallery of Pilar. It's like really cool. And then Saturday morning cartoons happened.
Right.
And I just became really, really just something really resonated with me, like especially the Smurfs. So that really just jumped out at me, like just resonated with me. Like, what is that, and how do I do it? And yeah, and it was just sort of like, and that was like the first day of the rest of my life.
I saw a video where you mentioned that you would travel upstate with your dad and like look for Smurfs in the bushes.
Oh my God, there was this one, and I want to do like a memoir about it, but it was like myself, and then like my dad had a friend. He had a couple of friends that had summer houses. So he had one friend. We were like out, and like, I gotta ask my friend. I think my dad. It was his friend's house in East Hampton, and so he had like the quote little kids. So it was like me and my friend Elena, and that was like my dad's friend's daughter, and then my sister and like the 2 older kids who were messing with us. So I was probably about like 8.5, but they had us convinced that, you know, Smurfs are real, and we saw them in the bushes, and so we went, and they said, Pilar, look, I see tracks. And to them, they were totally, and so my friend and I were like, whoa, you know, and to them, they were just messing with us. And it was just sort of like, aha, look at the silly kids thinking Smurfs are real. But to me, it was a kind of a really magical day, because I spent like a whole day believing that Smurfs were real.
Yeah.
And it was actually just so fun, like the adventure, and like we were going through like the trees, and like, oh look, I think I see one of their houses through that bush over there, and it's like, no way, I'm wrong, but I do see some tracks. And it was just really magical, just having like your imagination, you know, just like living in this like imagination, even though I was being messed with. To me, it was real, and I appreciated it.
Right.
I believed it.
So what do you really like about the Smurfs, and what like resonated with you about it?
I don't even know. There was something about it that it was almost like, it's completely believable that something like this could happen, because no one can ever find their village. And they're small, and they live in mushrooms. So if you ever do see their village, it just looks like a bunch of mushrooms. And, you know, and there's something I like about the blue, like the fact that they were all blue, like that resonated with me too. And the stories, like the stories were so simple. It was like good against evil, and you know, they were always being chased by some wizard or goblin, it was so good, you know. There's just something about it. I just really, especially the cartoon. I love the comic too, and I still have a bunch of the comics. That's kind of how I really got like obsessed with the Smurfs, was by reading the comics. But the cartoon was like, what? It was amazing.
Yeah. So you interned at Jim Henson in high school. How did you get the opportunity, and how was it?
Oh, wow. Okay. So, wow. We jumped ahead to high school. Whoa. Okay. So high school, I had this amazing teacher that Dr. Isle, oh my God, she was amazing. God rest her soul. And she just kind of took me under her wing, and she said there's a new initiative where if you get an internship, the city pays for it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you pick out, you apply, and if you get accepted into the program, you pick out where you want to intern, and then you send your time card to, it's like this organization, and then I was like, wow, really? So I was in the program. There were several students that were doing it, and so someone was like, one of my friends was like an intern at an architecture, mm-hmm. architecture firm. Someone else was a design firm. Someone else was like a painting studio, I just I basically just went totally extra with it and was like, I want to intern at Jim Henson Productions. And they were like, mm-hmm. and they were like, okay. And what was really amazing is I went in for the interview, and it was like at the Carriage House on East 67th Street. And I sat down with one of the producers, and you're there surrounded by monitors and tapes and artifacts from, and what was really interesting is that this was a year after Jim died. So this was like spring of 91, like spring mm-hmm. semester of 1991. And the wound was still fresh. Like you could tell that everyone still keenly felt the loss that, Jim Henson, Jim died like almost exactly a year prior. Yeah. But it was amazing. So when I got accepted, it was pretty incredible. I would leave high school, get on the crosstown bus 2 days a week, and I would work at the Jim Henson Productions. And it involved everything from dubbing tapes. Mm-hmm. Those young people out there, this is before MP3s, but you would put a tape in a machine and say somebody needs like a news company or somebody that needs a clip. Oh, I need episode 41 of The Muppet Show, blah, 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 blah. And I need 10 copies. So I would actually put like the 3/4 inch tape in the machine. And then I would put in like 10 VHS tapes, label them, send them out. Mm-hmm. One time, Richard Hunt, who does Scooter from The Muppet Show, and he's no longer with us, but we were there in the studio, us interns, just, sometimes we would sit there and sometimes they would just say, watch what's happening around you. Like, look at what's happening. Oh, sometimes they would say like, okay, we don't have anything for you to do at this moment, but look at what's happening around you. Yeah. And Richard Hunt came in with a shopping bag, and he pulls Scooter out of the shopping bag. Mm-hmm. And he sits down at the monitors and starts performing Scooter. Mm-hmm. And it was actually like one of the producer's kid's birthday. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, I'll perform a clip of Scooter, like saying happy birthday. And that's what it was. And he was like, hi, this is Scooter from Birthday Central. And someone told me that it's Mary's birthday today. And like the monitors behind it was really cute and corny and funny. And we just couldn't believe that we're sitting there watching Scooter. And then after he was done, he was like hanging out with us. He was like, oh, hey, so how's it going? And it wasn't like, okay, see you later, kid, I'm busy. Right. He hung out with us and talked to us and chatted with us. The nicest, most lovely person ever. Mm-hmm. Lovely. Another time, Dave Goltz, who does Gonzo and my favorite Fraggle, Boober, he came in, and on the top floor, they were auditioning puppeteers or Muppeteers. Mm-hmm. And they had like the kitchen was full of snacks and drinks and everything. So everybody that came in to audition, grab a snack or, and he was like overseeing the audition. And us interns, they were like, just hang out and watch. So of course we were completely rating the snacks and like watching. Yeah. And Dave Goltz would like watch, and then he would come in and hang out with us. Like, well, what did you think of that last one? And we're, oh yeah, well, and he was talking to us, and his voice, like, even his speaking voice, was kind of similar to Boober. It's very, really close to Boober. And I was like, I can't believe I'm talking to like my favorite Muppet, which is Gonzo. Like, and it was just like, you just had moments like that where we're normal, we're the norm. Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of raised the bar for me for like the rest of my life. It was like, wow. Like, I kind of feel like my life has just kind of been like that. Like, just sort of coming across amazing people, right. That inspired me. And I just felt really grateful and appreciative of all of it.
Yeah, because when I interviewed Dan Haskett, he was talking about how, you know, when he like pre-pandemic working at Warner Brothers and like all the like younger people were like scared to go talk to him, and it's like, come talk to me. I'm a normal person.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I ever go to a thing, like I get asked to speak a lot in different various schools and stuff. And I'll see like between whatever beforehand or after, I'll see students like, and I'm like, hey, come on over. What's up? How you doing? You know? Yeah. Or I go to the Ottawa Animation Festival a lot, and and a lot of times I'll see. I mean, it's not like I'm not like famous or anything, but someone will say, "That's Pilar over there. Like she worked on this TV show, that TV show, et cetera, et cetera." And I'll be like, I'll see like a student just kind of standing there like, and I'm like, you can come over. It's okay. I remember once for like actually 2 or 3 days, every time I turned around, there was this girl just kind of standing there like, and then she would like run. And then so finally I caught her long enough. I was like, hi. I was like, hey, what's your name? And she's like, I was just working up the nerve to come say hi to you. And I was like, you know, and it was just, I love it. So I totally see where Dan's coming from. If you ever talk to him again, tell him I said hi.
Okay, I will.
I met him a few times. I doubt he'd remember me, but I think he's amazing.
I'm sure he knows about you.
It's been a while. We crossed paths like 20 years ago, like a really long time ago.
You got a film and animation degree from RISD. What made you get a master's degree?
I just decided it was time. And then I've actually had people give me grief, like, Pilar, why did you get a degree in visual narrative? Why not animation? And so I remember I was at a party, an ASIFA party, and another animator, I won't say their name, but they were like, Pilar, how come you're not in grad school for animation? And she literally chased me around the party saying, why? You could have majored in animation. I was like, well, oh, wow, look at the time. I have to go over there now and get a drink. But she was like, I don't understand why. And then I got a drink. I was like, wow, oh my God, I think somebody's waving at me. And like, she just wouldn't drop it. So I was finally like, because I'm already know how to animate. I don't really want to spend $100,000 to learn how to do something I already know how to do. Right. So I wanted to go for visual narrative, which is basically creative writing and illustration. Actually, visual narrative could be a narrative, anything that's visual. It could be interpretive dance, you know. And it was amazing. And I just feel like my creative practice has like gotten 1,000 times better. And I've never felt so inspired, you know. And I just felt like it was time. I'm in that infamous class that graduated in 2020. So of course we had to finish out our time there online. But I feel really lucky that we were able to get in two full years in person before we had to finish out online. Yeah, because I have friends after me that had to basically do their whole entire first 2 years online. And I feel like that first year is like really important. And my classmates and I got really close. Yeah. And we're all still really close. We all talk all the time and everything. And it was amazing. And it led to some really cool opportunities too.
I feel like what you did was logical because like I have a degree in film and animation. And if I was to get a master's, which I don't think I will ever get a master's, but like I would definitely get it in something different. Like, why would I do the same thing? Like, I have a degree. I have my bachelor's in that. Why would I do it again? Like,
and then you could actually take what you already know and combine it with the new things that you're learning, you know? So that's what I'm thinking, you know, and I'm actually like working on a couple of films right now, like one of which I'm hoping to be done by spring. Oops. Yeah, that's yeah, that's like something like, you know, fingers crossed. That's my goal by May.
So I know your parents were supportive of your artistic endeavors. In what ways were they supportive?
Just because like they just immediately saw that I had potential, and they just like, you know, signed me up for art classes. And then another art class, like my mom signed me up for a cartooning class at Pratt when I was in junior high school. That was amazing. And then also at Pratt, a portfolio class, so I can get into, so I can get my portfolio going to get into LaGuardia High School Performing Arts, which is AKA the Fame School. If anybody, New Yorkers out there, you know. And then like for every one of my birthdays, like my dad bought me art supplies, and it was just like, I just felt really supported, you know, and it was really cool. And then, you know, and then like when I applied for RISD, it was a kind of a no brainer for both of my parents.
Yeah. I think I saw a video where you even mentioned when you went to LaGuardia that they taught you how to be an independent and like animator or like artist.
Yeah, actually, LaGuardia, they at LaGuardia High School, they like fully encourage your vision, and I think that's what like made the school really unique. It's like they taught you how to paint, color, illustrate, and they also encourage you, okay, be your own self. And then when I went on to Rhode Island School of Design, I was majoring in animation, and they said, well, first of all, we're not here to teach you how to be an animator. We're here to teach you to be an animator, but we're also here to teach you how to make a film. So will you come out of here being like really good at animating the flour sack and the bouncing ball and all that? You know, we're not here. If you came here to just learn how to do that stuff, you're in the wrong place. Like but if you want to know how to do a film, then you're in the right place. And I felt really good because ever since then, like I know from start to finish how to develop, storyboard, and animate a film. Even though I learned traditionally, I know how to, you know, I know where to start, you know. A lot of times people will know how to animate, but it's not enough to learn how to animate. You know, it's like, do you know how to do a film? You know?
Right. How far is Rhode Island from the city?
It's by bus about 4.5 hours. So like, it's just basically straight shot up like I-95. Like, so if you're going from New York to Rhode Island, it's like you're going north. And if you hit,
was there any culture shock? Like any culture shock with the difference between growing up in New York City and like going to school in Rhode Island?
You know, it took me a long time to appreciate Providence. I love that city so much now. Like when I first got there, I was like, wow, like every city, because I was going to school in a city, not like I wasn't on a campus with a football field and all that. I was basically like in a town, in a city. It's a city campus, but it's like but it's still like compared to New York City, it feels very quaint. Like it kind of feels like Brooklyn. Like it feels like quaint, but compared to everything you have, was like, wow, like everything closes at 7 or 6, and certain things are like that you normally expect to be open, like a grocery store or something. Everything closes at 7, or, you know, but it's like Providence it was a culture shock because of it definitely had like a small town vibe compared to New York City. Yeah. But then I started to fall in love with the city. You know, I just really started to appreciate it because it's such a quirky city. It has this weird little traditions. It's like the only place that you could buy, it's the only place that you could buy coffee milk. Do you know what coffee milk is? No. Coffee milk is like chocolate milk. It's like, but it's coffee flavored syrup. And this company in Providence, in Rhode Island, it's based in Rhode Island. It's called Autocrat. They're the only company in the United States that makes coffee flavored milk. Cool. I love it. There was definitely some culture shock though. But then by the time I was done, I was like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay. Like if I'd gotten a job, I would have stayed. I wanted to stay there. Like I hated returning back to Brooklyn, you know. Yeah. you know, that was a culture shock too.
Returning, yeah.
Yeah. Because I kind of pictured myself staying there and like living in Providence or Boston and like staying there and like not having to come home and move back in with my parents. Yeah. That was definitely a culture shock.
Yeah.
Reverse culture shock.
Right. So I'm gonna list some projects that you've worked on. And the point of this is like, you know, some of our favorite things growing up was worked on by people who look like us. So,
I love it. I love it.
Is this accurate on your IMDb, the Sesame Street assistant animator?
I worked on some stuff that appeared on Sesame Street. So this was all part of just the amazing animator John Dilworth, who's studio Stretch Films. So with John Dilworth and Stretch Films, I worked on 6 Noodles and Ned shorts, which is John Dilworth's Noodles and Ned characters. Some of you that are a little younger, that might sound familiar to you, but I worked on 6 of them, like 6 of these 1-minute shorts, and I learned so much. I learned how to take storyboards and do layout from them. I learned how to take layouts from the director and with notes, and I learned how to, you know, work from director's notes and create something coherent. And the amazing thing about him working with John is that he would give you like a scene to animate or in between, and he would say, okay, you know, get it accurate, get it right, but you could still put like your own self into it. He didn't like micromanage like every frame. I kind of just felt like I was free to just kind of be myself. Yeah. And that's what he encouraged, you know, like he's amazing.
Courage the Cowardly Dog as a storyboard artist.
Yeah, I was so I started off as a prop designer, and then I moved on. I was poached by the storyboard department as a storyboard revisionist. And actually, after I was working on the Noodles and Ned shorts with Stretch Films, we were like in a tiny studio. And he said, you know, guess what? Like I got my short film that, by the way, today is I believe today we are at the 1996. Yeah. The anniversary of Courage the Cowardly Dog and a Chicken from Outer Space premiered on Cartoon Network today in 1996. I hope I got that right.
Nice.
And so today is February 22nd. I hope I got that right, but it was give or take. And so his short film premiered on Cartoon Network, and it got nominated for an Oscar.
Nice.
So what was really amazing is he was like up against Nick Park, like and Nick Park, The Wrong Trousers. Like he was actually like nominated, and because it was on Cartoon Network, but it also was an independent film. Yeah. So by the time I came into the picture, it was already sort of like, I guess I don't know if I'm using the right terminology. So if he hears this, forgive me, John, but like in talks and prepping to be turned into a TV series, like Cartoon Network. So there I was, an animator, like first gig out of college. You know, I was, you know, working freelance, and John was like, he's so generous. Like he has such a big heart, like in terms of, you know, showing like what he, showing what he does and teaching you what he knows and stuff. So he said, what would you like to do on the show? And then I was like, whatever you'll have me for. He says, okay, you know, and then they put me in prop design because I wasn't that experienced yet. Yeah. So what was amazing about prop design is that it was a really great position to like learn on, and then he brought in amazing design supervisor, Tim Chi Lee, who's like still my dear friend. And I learned so much from him. He said, who turned in these character turnarounds? They're not very good. I said, oh yeah, that's Pilar. I said, I'll put her in prop design. So he He says, if I tell him that, he says, I don't remember saying that. Like, but and I learned so much because every time you had to design a prop, like they would hand you a storyboard and you have to pick out anything in your section of storyboard that they give you. You just have to pick out anything that's not a character that moves. Mm-hmm. So that could be an object, that can be a door slamming shut, that could be a glass or a cup, but everything was different. At one point, my very, very first assignment, they were having a food fight with Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. And the food fight, I had to design, they were throwing fruit back and forth, and the fruit kept landing in different shapes. Mm-hmm. So at one point, the fruit landed in the shape of Napoleon. Another point, it landed in the shape of the Eiffel Tower. Then it landed in the shape of the Statue of Liberty. Then it landed in the shape of an elephant. And they said, okay, your very first assignment, you have to design fruit Napoleon, fruit Statue of Liberty, fruit elephant. I was like, I did not know what I had just gotten myself into. This was my first assignment. It was like, how do I, and I learned so much. It's like, and then the next thing I had is a Cat's Motel. Okay, you have to design a bunch of spiders. I was drawing spiders for 2 weeks. and then everything that you had to do was different. Like like nothing was, you just never knew what was going to get thrown at you. It was amazing. So then like the storyboard supervisor, also my dear friend Bob Miller, like realized, hey, one day I didn't have anything to do for a few minutes, and he was like, Pilar, like I'm kind of in a bind. Could you just give me the storyboard panel real quick? And I was like, well, sure. And gave it to him. And then he said, hey, I just noticed that you're really good at drawing small. You're really good at storyboard. You pick up. I was like, oh, thanks. You know, next thing you know, he was like asking, we need Pilar. Can we just poach her? Like Tim was like grudgingly like, you just took one of my designers. Fine. You know, so I just became a storyboard revisionist. And, you know, and what that means is like, we get in storyboards from all these amazing artists from all around the country, and stack of storyboards. But the thing is like, then you have to go through the storyboards and put everything on model, because we're the last line of defense before these storyboards get sent overseas to get animated. So everything had to look really accurate. Yeah. So a lot of times you'll see storyboards and they look really like sketchy and like rough and stuff, which is mostly how storyboards look. Yeah. But in this case, because layout was not done in-house, the storyboards were the layouts. Yeah. Because then they would have to take the panel and blow it up to the size of 12 field animation paper and then work off that. Everything had to be really, really, really accurate. Yeah. I've had storyboards sent back to me and said, like, you put the wrong number of dots on his muzzle. Like so they really, and I said, well, can't they, wouldn't they look at the model pack as well? And they said, no, that they would work off the model pack, but everything has to be as accurate as possible. If you have a wrong number of dots, they're going to think that's like part of the model. I was like, I understand. So you had to just I learned so much because everything had to be as accurate as possible. And it got to the point where we were like redoing entire sequences and so much so that in the Gods Must Be Goosey, the episode from season 1 where a goose god falls in love with Muriel, I got storyboard credit in the opening credits, like storyboarded by J.P. Dillard and Pilar Newton. So, so I was like, oh yeah, I got a storyboard credit, like for main storyboard, because I did so much storyboard work on that show. Like I got like main credit. I kind of like, John was probably just like, what I love so much about John Dilworth is that he can be like really strict and say, you know, you're doing it wrong. And, you know, like he's really hard on you, but he always wants to give the artist props. So he'll say like, you know, he was probably, you know, even like I've worked on independent stuff with him later. And he always made sure like he could just put like animated by Stretch Films and leave it at that. But he always made sure, I worked on some stuff for TED Ed with him, and he always made sure your name is listed in the credit, like even so it's searchable on the TED Ed website. And yeah. And I was like, wow, I thought that was like really cool. Just always wanting to give artists props because he remembers what it was like to come up also. So it was just so great. Sorry, I know I can go on and on about that.
I was watching your Play-Doh one.
Oh yeah, that was really fun. Like that's John's, and I assistant animated that, and that was really great. That was fun. Like, I had like a week to do it, to work on it.
Oh wow.
So John just gave me all those layouts and stuff. It's like, oh my God, we have a week. It was crazy, but I learned a lot working on that.
You also did layout for Daria.
Yeah, that was really fun. Daria. I learned so much on that. That was like MTV, you know. That was like I had been trying for years to get into MTV, and I kept getting turned down, and finally like this opened up. I was like, so I worked on season 4 of Daria, like layout artist, and that was really fun again with layout. And I was on the first season where it was colored digitally. The seasons before me, everything was like inked onto cells and hand painted. So I worked on the first season where it was the animation was inked, and then it was like colored, scanned in and colored digitally. And that was really cool. And I was even in an episode because you had to populate the town and the school, and you had so many characters that you had to populate street scenes or hallway scenes where the characters are walking down the hallway. The designers start running out of ideas. You know, there's only so many ideas you have. So like there was teen versions. Everyone in the whole crew had a teen version of themselves. So I was in a street scene. I'm probably in a few scenes, but you could see me in the background in I Loathe the Parade. And I guess I don't know if you could tell it's me, but I'm in the street. That scene, that episode in particular, you could see me in the background. So it's really funny when you're doing layout and you have to draw yourself.
Right. On model.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't have any speaking part. I almost had a speaking part on Courage the Cowardly Dog. I always tell this story that on the Great Fusilli, the episode where this crocodile kind of character, he had a puppet tent. He was sort of like a Stromboli from Pinocchio kind of character, but he would go around and he would turn people into puppets. And so at one point I was actually supposed to come alive like as a puppet and then turn into a bomb. At one point I'm supposed to say, you're all gonna die, you're all gonna die, you're all doomed. And I ended up on the editing room floor, but you could see me in the background. I'm still in an episode, like you could see my dead, lifeless wooden corpse like on the floor, like and I don't know how, like my students are always able to find it. I don't know. But you could see I'm in the background of the Great Facility, like one of the scenes. You could see me for like a second.
Yeah. And you're a storyboard artist for Rocket Power.
Okay, yeah. Now,
I loved Rocket Power.
Oh God, I love Rocket Power so much. I actually worked on storyboard for one episode. And it was because they were trying out like sending storyboards out remotely, and one of my storyboards actually made it onto an episode. Nice. And then 9/11 happened, and then everybody kind of got a little skittish about spending money.
Yeah.
But I get to have like a credit. But then what happened was my storyboard, you know, I found out through the grapevine that Nickelodeon Creative Resources here in New York City was hiring hiring artists to work on children's books. And so one day I just kind of walked into the office just cold with my portfolio, and I said, hey, are you testing for storyboard? You know, because if you say you're testing for storyboard, they'll actually give you a storyboard test. I'm sorry, children's books. Are you testing for children's books? And they'll actually give you like an art test. So it's like, see how well and dynamically you draw the characters. And that's the first time I ever did that, where I just walked into an office, you know, with my portfolio in my hand, literally like on print, in like one of those books. And actually, the lady behind the desk was like, "Actually, we are." And she said, "Hold on a minute." And she came out with like a big Manila envelope. She said, "Here you go." Like, could you hand it back in a week? I was like, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, like I didn't think that would work. And it usually doesn't, by the way, like FYI.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I actually got like approved, you know, and it didn't hurt that I had Rocket Power storyboards in my portfolio as well. And
yeah,
and actually like it could have been for any Nickelodeon property, but it just so happens that they were gearing up to do Rocket Power children's books.
Yeah.
And the art director like really dug what I was doing. And
mm-hmm.
and I actually worked on five books. I illustrate, and the great thing about what I love telling people when I speak
mm-hmm.
is when you do children's books or anything that involves drawing, nothing's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, don't just go into it saying, oh, I want to be an animator. Mm-hmm. That's not enough. Be good at everything. And like, so John Dilworth, I learned this from John. He said, be a Renaissance artist. I said, what does that mean? He said, be good at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And you stand that much more chance of getting a job. So in animation, for instance, be good at storyboard, be good at design, be good at layout, be good at, you know, you be good at animation, but, you know, but be good at everything. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, be good at, you know, adapting to different styles and drawing characters. And you could do stuff like work on illustration and children's books. And I do a lot of like licensed character art, you know, because I'm good at like adapting. So I've done like Scooby-Doo licensed character art, product art. I've done product art for like Frosty the Snowman and SpongeBob SquarePants. The season 2 DVD of SpongeBob SquarePants, it, like all of the package art I painted.
Nice.
Like they gave me, I was actually given existing art like in black and white, and then I just painted everything in like this like dry brush style. And I'm actually kind of proud of it. I still don't have a copy of it. Maybe I should get it.
Yeah.
But anything that involves drawing that you can do, it's like nothing's off the table. And then, you know, even like listen, like teaching.
Yeah.
You know, you like doing animation, you like drawing, is you could also teach drawing, you know. Not everybody wants to do that, and I don't blame people, but like like teaching, it's pretty cool, and I learned that pretty early on.
Yeah. Like it's funny, kind of to talk about when people ask you like, what is your like favorite animated project? And I'm just like, it's impossible. Like there's like the era of Looney Tunes, and then there's like Hanna-Barbera, and then there's like the 90s, and then there's like the 80s, and there's like the 2000s, with like Rocket Power and Weekenders. And like, why are you making me choose?
I remember that show Weekend and Recess. Oh my god.
Yeah, Recess.
I kind of felt like Weekenders was such a good show. They were sort of trying to be like Rocket Power a little bit because they, you know, they skated and but it had its own vibe. And Recess, I love Recess like that. I love the fact that like everything is like this whole world where every episode takes place during recess.
Yeah.
And did you ever see the Recess, the movie?
Maybe. I think so.
Yeah, there was a movie. I think it's viewable. I think it's on. I believe it's on Disney Plus.
Oh, I did too. I don't.
And it's such a good show.
It is.
It
took me so many different eras of animation. I'm like, why are you making me choose one? That doesn't.
I know. And then there's Phineas and Ferb. Phineas and Ferb. Oh, by the way, Google Phineas front view. Like there's like a hashtag where it's all like Phineas seen from front view. Because he's like 100% meant to be viewed from 3/4. Like but as is Bart Simpson, by the way. Like if you Google like Bart front view, it's like widely believed that like a lot of characters just don't look good from front view. So they found all the screenshots. Like it's really funny. Random fun fact. Check it out.
Yes. And then you've done a lot of stuff. I'll kind of go through from your IMDb: Captain Cornelius cartoons, Cartoon Lagoon, the Kodak Project, Paley Whaley, Beaches himself, Who Am I? A philosophical inquiry, The Magical Mystery of, I don't know how to say that word, Musigny.
Oh yeah, Musigny. That's like I gotta give a shout out to my director friend Emmett Goodman, who directed that for a friend of his, a colleague of his who's a sommelier who said I want to do a film about wine.
Nice.
And some of the designs on it were like so beautiful. I just like wanted to weep. I was like, this is really great. And I also wanted to just give a shout out to my producer friend Jose Maldonado. I love you, Jose. Like, he's amazing. So that's what Paley Whaley is. And actually check out Paley Whaley, because like this guy did a film in the 90s about a whale that gets beached, and then he just has all these adventures on land, and that's what Paley Whaley is. And then this is sort of like the second one where Paley Whaley ends up at Coney Island somehow, and it actually got into the Coney Island Film Festival.
Nice.
So that was really cool. And so, you know, Jose's awesome, and so is Emmett, and I love both of them so much, and they're my animation ride or dies, both of them.
And then POV, The Lady and the Tiger, and Adrian. That's all that's on your IMDb currently.
What happened was there's a feature-length documentary. And let me just rewind and say, like, so my amazing director friend Richard O'Connor, his company Ace and Sons Moving Picture Company. So do you know, are you familiar with StoryCorps, or what StoryCorps is?
Yes, yeah. I like their animated adaptations. Yeah,
so I know like the Roush brothers started off doing a few, and then my amazing animator friend Gina Kamensky did a couple, did a few, and after a while I started getting calls from my friend Richard O'Connor, and I go like way back to like I was coming in as a freelance animator doing stuff for Ink Tank, and we were animating, they were doing animation for like Between the Lions, and if you're young enough, you remember that show. And actually my dear friend and colleague, it's Chris Surf, that's his baby. And so fast forward to like you know, a few years ago, Richard O'Connor just out of the blue hit me up and said, "Hey, you know, we're doing some StoryCorps. Are you on board?" And I said, "Yeah." And I was really busy. I'm usually busy with like 3 or 4 projects. And but I said, you know, throw me some scenes. And so he, whenever he works on stuff, it's always a joy, because you know, it's maybe about 1% of the time that I'll get a retake sent back to me, because he just lets you just be yourself. I mean, obviously it has to, what I do has to be good, but he just lets you just throw your own flourishes in. He lets you be yourself. He lets you animate. He'll just give you like the first frame and the length and say, okay, animate this. Yeah. You know, and like animating, doing animation with him is just a joy, because it's just, I just get to stretch my animation muscles and just have fun at the same time. We just recently did a StoryCorps. I guess I'm not going to say the title because it's not out yet, but I ran into him over the summer, and he said, "Pilar, do you have time to animate on something?" And I said, "Could you just throw me a couple of scenes that I could do in a weekend? Because I'm about to start teaching again. I don't have a lot of time, you know." He said, "Sure." And he looked really shifty. He said, "Okay, no problem." And I was like, oh boy, I got a little nervous. I was like, what's going on? A couple of days later, he sent me, he says, "Pilar, you know, we just decided, you know, I think it's just easier for me to just give you the whole thing to animate." And I said, "How is that easier? Just explain, how is that easier?" Because he says, "Well, because, you know, you have all the way until November, and you know, you could just like animate the whole thing, like all the way through." And I was just like, how? So I was just like, sure. And then the second I said, okay, then like my, you know, a whole lot of like family emergencies happened all at the same time. And I didn't touch it for like a month. I was like, and then I went to Ottawa And then I see him in Ottawa at the Ottawa Animation Festival. I'm like, Richard, I'm working on your animation. I hadn't touched it at that point. I was like, he's like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm putting out a bunch of fires on my end anyway. Oh great, I can't wait. You know, but I powered through, and I in my opinion, I feel like I did a great job, and he's amazing. But the one thing that's really really interesting one was like about, God, I guess a little over a year ago. No, this is like, God, a year and a half ago. He said, Pilar, could you animate a couple of scenes? And he gave me like a good kind of lengthy little chunk of a couple of scenes. I was like, well, sure. And this was like, we were still in lockdown. It was a pandemic. I was like working out of a cabin in upstate New York. It was pretty amazing. And he says it's a project about a documentary about actress Adrienne Shelley. Are you familiar with that story? It's like really like sad story about this amazing, like the actress who wrote Waitress, the writer who wrote Waitress, the play, and she was the musical, I mean, and she was murdered. And so I actually animated a scene in which her daughter is like coming to terms with the fact that her mother's not coming home. And it was like really deep. And I actually thought when I was working on it, I actually thought it was going to be, it was a storycorps for storycorps. That didn't make it any less, you know, but important or anything. But I did, you know, animate it, et cetera, et cetera. Then my friend Emmett, who's also working it, said, hey, Pilar, how do you feel about the fact that you worked on a feature documentary? I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Like this, the Adrienne project? He said, yeah. Like, how do you, I was like, I thought that was like StoryCorps. I thought that was like a short. Like, he's like, no, it's a feature film. He's like, I was like, wait, what? I didn't know that. Like, and I'm kind of glad I didn't know, because I would have been more nervous as I animated, you know?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, and actually recently, like I have friends hit me up on Facebook saying, hey, I'm like watching this like featured documentary about actress Adrienne Shelley's tragic story. But I'm seeing your name in the credits. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, that's amazing. Like, so that was just like a really long shout out to my friend Richard O'Connor. He's just doing amazing stuff. It's always, and like honored to be a part of this stuff.
I think I was interviewing Gary Anthony Williams, and he was talking about he was working on a project, and he thought, I can't remember what property it was, but essentially he thought it was a movie, and then they kept like bringing him into the studio to do voice acting. And he's like, do y'all keep messing up? Like, why do I keep coming? And then they're asking him like, oh, so what do you think about like being on a TV show? It's like, oh, that was a TV show. He didn't even know. He just like, why do y'all keep calling me back in for this voice?
Oh, and then they were just doing like, wait more. Oh, it was because like,
no, like he just was confused. Like it was always a TV show, but he just didn't know.
Oh, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Oh my God,
it's
I love
funny
it.
to hear stories like that where they're like, where people are just like, oh, I thought I was doing something different. Like,
oh, I know. It's like, it's really funny. Like I kind of slipped, and I said, hey, Richard, if I had known it was a feature documentary, and then I just like stopped. He says, what, you would have like animated better or something? I was like, no, that's not what I was going to say, but I actually was about to say that. But he's like, oh, so you mean to tell me that you animated crappily because you thought it was, I was like, no, that's literally not what I was going to say. I was like dying laughing. I was like, no. But I slipped because like actually instinctually I was like, if I had known, I was like, no, wait, that's not what I was going to say. Anyway, I was laughing. But he totally like was totally messing with me. It was great. I love it.
Can you talk more about the opportunities you've gotten to work as a director in your personal projects?
Yeah, actually, my first directing gig, actually my very first directing gig was a Listerine. Actually, I went into a studio called Treehouse, and they brought me in for my very first directing gig. God, this was 2006, and I was directing a special Listerine ad that was on a 5-minute Listerine ad that was comes on a bottle, this mouth rinse that's actually been discontinued. I had nothing to do with that, folks, but It was this document. It's not sorry. This mouthwash called Agent Cool Blue. Look it up, like KOOL Agent Cool Blue, and it got I don't know why it got discontinued. And I actually designed and directed and storyboarded this whole like documentary. I keep saying documentary. I'm sorry. Listerine ads. So that was really interesting and eye-opening. Like one of my first jobs, one of my first duties, I had to fire someone. I actually had a never hire your friends, guys. So I hired someone, and he kind of just sort of didn't really rise to the challenge. Let's put it that way. And then like my director, who was like my boss, who directed me while I directed the animation, was like, listen, you have to let him go because we're not going to get done. Either you fire him or we do. And it was like the kid in Old Yeller who has to put down the dog. It's like, I hate, oh my God, I just compared an animator to a dog. But now, you know, it's like it's your dog, you put him down. It's like, so it's like, it's your friend, you have to fire him. And then I sat him down and I said, we got to let you go. He says, I was kind of expecting that. I was like, you were? Like, then why did you keep doing a crappy job? You know, it was like, you know, yeah. That didn't feel good. And then, but everything I learned and my amazing coworkers were amazing. Like we had like the amazing Otis Brayboy, like he came on, he was our background designer, and that was actually the first time that I worked directly with him on a project. Like he was over on like, I think Doug and Beavis, but we kept missing one another. Yeah. But he did some stuff on Courage the Cowardly Dog. So actually that's not true. I take it back. He was on there. But it was the first time I worked directly with the awesome Christy Bertelson. Who, she and I always just find a way, always follow one another on our careers. We both ended up at we both ended up at the School of Visual Arts, teaching animation. And speaking of which, I got to hit her up. And then, you know, actually, I started getting good at Adobe Animate. And I just started like working on my own stuff. And, you know, what's really amazing, I did a graphic novel over the pandemic. I did a graphic novel. It was also part of my studies. And so you remember when I told you when I was 8 years old and I was obsessed with the Smurfs, I started coming up with my own characters called Snozzlewinks. And this is something I created when I was 8. And I just filled up notebooks with adventures with these creatures. They have like, they're green and they have elephant noses, and I just wanted to come up with something that was like sort of a creature that had this adventures, and actually that's one of them in the background. Nice. One of my students actually surprised me and did a doll. So the amazing Kayla Solomon, look her up. She's amazing, awesome animator. She's actually directing a bunch of stuff. So I did a graphic novel based on those characters in 2020. And that ended up being my thesis. And I'm just kind of like expanding on that world. You know, I'm actually doing more. And I'm kind of waiting for, I would love it to reach a wider audience, you know. The main character is Black. Like Stella is a girl that lives in Brooklyn and enters a hidden portal in the middle of Brooklyn that's in what may or may not be Prospect Park, and it's very Brooklyn. And she ends up in this world, and that is not Brooklyn, you know. So we have one of those Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore moments, and this was pretty cool. And of course, there's so many stories like that now, right? Like about the magical girl. No, the girl goes to a magical world, and so whatever I'm doing is like, it's hardly, you know, it's hardly original, but like, you know, I was kind of doing it mostly for me, you know. And so now, like in the next story, the Snozzlewinks are coming to our world. So I'm kind of working on, I'm kind of excited about that. And I'm actually, finally, I'm working on 2 films. And one of them is sort of like, not a cheerful film. One of them is a metaphor for slowing down. And it's also the end of civilization. really cheerful stuff, right? Like people like Pilar, why are you're like Miss Bubbly cheerful? Like, why are you doing a film about like the end of civilization? And I'm like, and because I was like, well, it's not that I want to do a film about the end of civilization, but for a very short time, we did watch civilization end temporarily because of the pandemic. And then everybody, it's a metaphor for slowing down and what happens when you slow down. I have so many people I know that during lockdown and then people quarantined for a year. Some people didn't leave their apartment for 2 years, you know. And during that time, people that were perfectly healthy, I kind of feel like health, when you stop, that's when health issues kind of come to the forefront, health issues that existed already. Yeah. You know, and I remember my 10th grade watercolor teacher, Miss Dell, who I'm still very close with, she said, never retire, Pilar. I was like, what do you mean? She said, never retire, because the second you retire, that's when you stop. And then that's when like health issues start to happen. I was like, wow, and that stayed with me. And
that's what happens to like generals when they retire from the military. They like soon die.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what this is a metaphor for. It's like kind of like very abstract, but it's like a metaphor for slowing down. And that's really interesting. And this is a little idea that came to me like 10 years ago, and I kind of jotted it down and forgot about it. And then it just felt like it resonated more now after the pandemic, and like all these visuals and ideas started coming to me. So it's crazy. And then the next, the one that I'm doing, that's sort of like, I'm doing a series of like I'm doing a series of memoir animations that I just have so many stories that I want to tell. And so I'm just doing a series of little 1 minute, 1 to 2 minute like memoir animations. I just want to do a bunch of them. And I want to finish a couple of them up by the spring, by like April, May, because that's when, you know, it's a film festival, animation festival submission season.
Yeah.
A lot of the animation festivals are open at that time. So I'm like, maybe I'll get something into a festival. We'll see. So we'll see.
Yeah. So when you've had like full-time jobs, you would still do work on the side. How did that benefit you throughout your career, particularly when you were working at the bigger studios?
Oh, like, how did working a full-time job in a studio benefit?
No, like you would have full-time jobs, but you would do side gigs and your coworkers would make fun of you for having side gigs.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, thank you. Oh, man, oh, man, you really did your research. Holy cow. Okay, so, you know, okay, so I was, for instance, I'm going to leave names out. I'm going to leave names out, but there was a studio in 2005. I was working on a show. And really amazing coworkers and everything. I was a storyboard revisionist on that show. It was for Disney, and we were like really busy. Like we were such a great crew. Like our little storyboard revisionist bubble, and down the hall you had the animators, and around the corner you had the designers, and it was just so great. But I was still like taking on like 1 to 2 gigs. I was illustrating children's books. I would like work a full day, then go home, work until 2 a.m., set my alarm, and come in and rinse and repeat. And my coworkers were like, Pilar, you're always taking on gigs. You know, you work full time now. You don't have to take on gigs. And I was like, I will never stop taking on side gigs, because I always feel like I have to keep going or I won't survive. So sure enough, one day, and not sure enough, I wasn't expecting anything like this to happen. They called a meeting, and they said, sorry, the project got pulled, and you all have to go home. And for some reason, the Disney pulled the plug on us, and it wasn't anything. Well, it wasn't me specifically. It was like the whole studio. And everybody, you know, there are people that were like, we're just, okay, let's go get drunk, you know? And then there were people that were like, you know, I felt bad. And then some people ranged from, oh, well, like time to hit the pavement again. And some people were crying, you know. Me, I still had like so many irons in the fire. I actually had like a children's book I was working on where I was making 30 grand from doing like 10 drawings. And
Nice.
I was also doing outside freelance for an animation studio. And I still had like so much going on, you know, that I just was like, okay, you know, this is, I feel really bad about this, but I have other work to do. So I had stuff going on. I always had irons in the fire, you know? And even now I'm an assistant professor. I'm full time, but I'm still working on films. Like I would never stop animating. And illustrating, you know? And so I'm excited, you know, I'm excited to see where like the next trajectory for me is, like my own work and what I'm gonna get out there next of my own stuff. Because one thing that I'm really frustrated about is I don't really have a lot to show from the last 10 years, for instance, of my own work.
Right.
I have a lot to show of stuff that I've worked on for other people, but I don't have a lot to show for my own work, and I plan to change that. So I'm really excited about it. What the future has to hold.
Something that I don't let hold me back, but I know is the reason that my channel isn't as popular as it could be, is not having that big studio behind my name and title, like Deborah Anderson, insert big studio 3D modeler. So what have you learned over the years in your career as a freelance animation professional, and what would you like to share with others regarding that?
You know, honestly, like I know the feeling, like for instance, like if I put up a clip or a film, like or something I worked on, you know, if you go to my YouTube channel, like the independent film I did in 2008, I want to say, like got like literally at like 20 views, like, you know, but then if I say, oh, I worked on Courage the Cowardly Dog and put up a picture of me standing next to a drawing of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which I've done, I'll get 300 likes in 1 hour.
Yeah. And
what that goes to show is like, it's like, I know that's like, that can be discouraging. And I've basically stopped accepting outside work because I want to work on my own stuff. I'm like, it's almost like you would think, oh, I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. But I've come to the realization now that I'm doing this for myself.
Yeah.
And I hope people see it and I hope people like it. But don't let whether you work for a studio or not define you. Right. Keep doing it. And the people that you want to see it will see it. And as long as you love doing it, then keep doing what you love. And, you know, and it might take a little longer, but, you know, I tell students all the time, I have a friend, or when I speak at places, I have a friend, he animated an entire film on an iPhone just with drawing, like with a drawing app with his finger. And this is when the iPhone first came out. And he created he turned it into a music video and it got on TV and won awards. Like you literally have what's in your pocket to do a film now. Whereas for me, when I was coming up, you had to have hundreds of dollars to develop film. You had to have tens of thousands of dollars to edit like a optical track and edit it in big studios. And if it doesn't come out, then you have to spend like another couple $100s to develop more film. And like you have to have tens of thousands of dollars just to do a 3-minute film. Like now you have like you literally have what's in your pocket. And I feel like the generation of today is really lucky. And FYI, I think it's really amazing that you know Cinema 4D. I would give anything to know how to animate in 3D.
I can teach you.
Well, you know, I love, like, for instance, I use VeggieTales as an example. Like, I love VeggieTales. Like, when VeggieTales first started, it was a big idea. They were just like, let's just animate these crudely animated vegetables that don't have arms and legs. Telling Bible stories. And I'm not even religious, and I'm obsessed with VeggieTales because I love how random it is. Like they were kind of mostly doing it for themselves because they were just like, hey, we want to tell Bible stories, but in a silly way, but still staying like respectful to the material. But but then there's also like silly songs that they sing in between the Bible stories, and they were just silly and true to themselves. And I was actually talking to my very dear friend Gina the other day, and she said, Pilar, whatever you do, be true to yourself. Yeah. You know, don't do what you think people want to see. Like stay true to yourself, you know. animate this thing that you want to animate?
That's what I learned. Well, first, like when I worked for the state of Louisiana, you know, I learned Maya in college and we had access to Maya. But sometimes when I was doing a lot of industrial manufacturing stuff and like, you know, animating water through pipes and stuff. And I was like, we also have access to Cinema 4D, and it's actually easier for me to do this in Cinema 4D because of the tool. So, all right, Maya, to like move to the side, and I just was like using Cinema 4D for most of the stuff. But also, what I learned, because during that, you know, Issa Rae time on YouTube and like
oh god, I love her.
Like what I learned because during that time I would watch a lot of like YouTube movies and TV shows, and if you have a great story, people will give you grace on how it looks, because like there'll be, you know, TV shows where people had to like, you know, smoke detector beep in the background. I'm like, well, y'all change the battery. But like, like I was watching all this like live action stuff, and it was like, even if it was kind of, you know, not blurry, but not the highest quality, if it was a good story, it was still a good time.
Oh yeah, like 100%, like in animation, like if it has a really, I mean, I've seen animation that looks like it was drawn with like left-handed with your eyes closed. I mean, you know, if you're a righty, you know, and it has like a really great story, and everyone like loved it.
Yeah.
And
story is king.
Like, it really is. It's like, and then that's the thing I'm trying to, because a lot of the work, I come from a TV background, and a lot of the work that I do looks very commercial and slick, and I'm trying actually to force myself away from that. And I'm trying to like unlearn a lot of what I learned over the last few years, and I want to like kind of enter it fresh, like Pilar at RISD, like animating in pencil, and you know. Except I decided I still want to animate digitally. So I'm using, for a lot of what I'm doing, I'm using BlkWmnAnimator, which is largely considered to be the best, one of the best, if not the best animation app. Like that would be like tablet app for, because it's made by an animator for animators. So my very good friend, developer and amazing animator, Jacob Kafka, like, kudos to him for making that. So I have like no excuse. My iPad doesn't fit in my pocket, but it fits in my purse. So I have the resources right in my purse to like animate something. So I'm kind of excited.
Can you talk about how you initially shunned the thought of going to the Ottawa International Animation Festival, and then how you get the opportunity to go, and what the impact that festival and other festivals have had on you?
No, it's ironic because I'm like anyone that like even remotely knows me knows that I'm like obsessed with the Ottawa Animation Festival. Like I've gone like pretty much every year for 30 years, and so much so that it gets to the point where I go to the festival and I just like show up. I have like a standing invitation from at least 6 people, like I could just stay with. Like one time I actually tested my theory. I actually showed up. I didn't make any hotel reservations, and I just like got off the plane, made a phone call, and said, like, Pilar, what are you doing? Come over, you know. And it's like, so Ottawa's become like my second home. But so I'm setting up the irony. So RISD in 1994, this was actually, 1994, they said, hey, this is in the spring. And I said, Pilar, in the fall, we're taking our seniors to the Ottawa Animation Festival, like Amy Kravitz, my thesis teacher, my animation teacher, amazing Amy Kravitz and Steve Subotnick they're married, they co-teach together. They said, you know, in the fall, you know, we're taking you to the Ottawa Animation Festival. And I was like, I don't know. I don't have the money, and it sounds boring, you know, just sitting around watching watching abstract films for 6 hours in a row for a week. I don't know. And it was like, okay. And she like walked away. I was like, she accepted that way too readily. So the next thing you know, like, Lynn McCormick, who's like she's basically like ran the department. Like she was sort of like the assistant of who ran the department. Everybody knew she ran the department. So Lynn So she was like, Pilar, could you come up to the, I can't remember. Someone says, hey, Lynn wants to talk to you. She's in the office. I was like, oh man, is she going to kick my ass? What's going on? So she said, hey, Amy tells me that you don't want to go to the Ottawa Animation Festival. I was like, yeah, I don't have the money. It's like, I got to come up with $200. I have to pony up $200 to pay for the bus and the hostel. And I'm good. I could just stay in Providence and work on my film while you guys go to. And she said, I don't know what you believe you're going to do, but you're going. And I was like, what? And I was like, she says, well, I'll send you. I'll pay for you to go. And then you just work it off when you come back. I was like a little like, what? She says, trust me, you will like, you need to go. Like, and there's something specifically about me because I had classmates. There were a handful of classmates that did not go. And they're like, okay, but for some reason they were like, Pilar, like, are you sure about this? Because you really need to go. I was like, what the? So, so I went, and what struck me, and I tell this story all the time, what struck me about the Ottawa Animation Festival is that you go and like, it felt very like you're going and you watch a film, and then a second later you're at a party standing next to the person who made your favorite film having a beer. Like, it wasn't like, the filmmaker was like whisked off to some celebrity place wherever famous people go. It was like there could be a film that like, brought me to tears, and then a second later I'm in the lobby and like, there's a filmmaker like, and just the camaraderie and how just like everywhere you go, you just feel so accepted. Like you could be 19. You could be 30. Everywhere you went, oh, Pilar, this is party. Oh my God, come on, hey, how you doing? Like, I remember I met I was standing in front of the theater, and Henry Selick is there talking to a friend of mine. I walk up, like, hey, Pilar, meet my friend Henry, and it wasn't like, hey, nice to meet you, kid. Gotta go, like like I'm Henry Selick. I'm famous. I directed Nightmare Before Christmas, but you lowly individual. I'm going to leave now. It wasn't like that. It was like. He was like, oh, hi, how are you? It's so nice to meet you. It's like, what do you do? And like I just standing there for like a solid, like something like 10 to 20 minutes chatting with Henry Selick. Like, what? And this is what it's like every year. So when I came back in that first year from the Ottawa Animation Festival, I mean, I remember being like us little RISD kids, who became my very dear friend, Joanne, who I want to be her when I grow up. To this day. Like, she always knew where the cool parties were, even if the parties that weren't like widely known. Yeah. She said, I heard that a bunch of MTV people are hanging out in a suite. And I was like, MTV? You mean like actual people from MTV are hanging out and I get to meet? So she's like, come on. And so we went to this suite, and I'm like there, and like the likes of Willie Hartland and Eric Calderon and like, Mike DeSev and like, like, all people like Willie Hartland is like one of my closest friends and dear friend. Like, it's like, here I am going, oh my God, these are people that worked on Beavis and Butthead. And I'm like, and they're like welcoming us. Like, hey, what's up? And so when I went back to like to Providence, I was like, oh my God, like, thank you so much. Lynn was like, I told you. So, right. And so, and I've been going, like, I mean, it's so much so that I've like basically I'm so obsessed with the Ottawa Festival. I just like, I go to the Ottawa office. The first stop I make when I arrive in Ottawa is I buy a bottle of wine, and I go to the festival, the office, and I leave a bottle of wine on Kelly Neal, the managing director of the Ottawa Festival. I always leave a bottle of wine on her desk, and I always leave a beer on artistic director Chris Robinson's desk. And I mean, I love the festival so much. I'm always like, thank you for doing an amazing job.
And then after your first one, you went back and like worked off the money.
I did. Like, I went back. I was like, and actually some of the stuff I had to do, like I had to, I was scrubbing editing suites. And so like literally they gave me a rag, a razor blade, a toothbrush, and a can of WD-40. And I'm like, I got there at 7:30 in the morning. I was like cleaning editing suites. I had to put on like an apron and mask. It's like no speck of dust. I had my radio going. I was like, I can't believe how great Ottawa was. I was scrubbing the floor. I was like, oh, I'm so happy. And I was like, Stimpy. I mean, I was like, ran in like happy. I was like, so happy. I'm so happy. So like, it's literally what it was. Like, I was like, it was just amazing. And then the following time, because I was back when the Ottawa Festival was like every other year. So you had the regular festival every other year, and then every year between it was the student one. But I could only afford to go every other year anyway. So, but I had so little money in 1996 when I went back. I volunteered.
Yeah,
which was great. And I always think I want to volunteer, but then something happens where I'm like, I don't know. I love volunteering, but I'd really rather just go and get drunk, you know? Like, no, not really. There's more to it than there is more to it than that. Let's just put it that way. No, and I had the honor, like last year, I was asked, Chris Robinson really just blew me away and asked me to be on the jury. And actually, he asked me in 2020. He said, Pilar, would you like to be on the jury? I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm so honored. Thank you so much for asking me. He said, yes, but under one condition. It has to be when we're back in person, because we will have too much of a blast. Like, yeah, because we always have a blast. Like, you know, Chris, I always get a beer with him like on the first day of the festival, and like, you know, and then like, we always like, we're like old college buddies, you know, even though I never went to college. Like, we totally like josh each other. Hey, Pilar, screw you, man. I'm like, yeah, screw you. And like, we just have this thing we love one another so much. There's so much love there, but like, yeah. But all we do is make fun of each other when we're together. And so if someone doesn't know us, they're like, oh my God, those people hate each other. And it's like, it's like the opposite. It's really funny. But so fine, the Ottawa Festival for 2 years did online. Because it's like Canada like hadn't even opened their borders yet. It was like kind of dicey, even for 2021. And they did such an amazing job. And they're like one of the only festivals that did the festival online and were successful in being true to the festival, being true to themselves and having like the vibe, you know. Nice. And so finally Chris was like, this is the year, 2022. We're going to be in person. Like, and I had the best time. It was amazing. Can
you talk about what do you love about teaching?
God, it's like I almost love teaching more than I love animating, because the students, like 100% the students, I love my students so much. I can't even like, I can barely talk about my students without like wanting to cry. Like, they're just amazing. Like, like just seeing like Black and brown like kids like coming in and just looking enthusiastic, and I'm like, I just want to pour my heart out, and I just want to open my veins and be like, here, what can I give you, you know? And like, but I do that in the form of knowledge, and you know, and then one of the things I say is, I'm like, you know, you're gonna walk out of here, I can't guarantee a job, I can't guarantee you'll find work to anyone, but one thing I will guarantee is like, you'll walk out of here an animator. And you have the resources that I never had, and like the whole demeanor changes like when I say that to like, you know. And I have students that are doing like podcasts and doing YouTube channels and films, and every time one of my students, you know, tells me, oh, I got a job or I got an internship, it just feels like like it just feels like victory, you know, like every time it's like I feel like I got the job, like. Because I'm so happy. It's just victory, you know. It just feels amazing. And so that's what I love. And the City College of New York, just we're the flagship campus of the City University of New York, uptown on 140th and Amsterdam, like the whole campus, like in campus, like 10 block radius, but my building is 140th in Amsterdam, 140. And I just, every minute I'm with it, it just doesn't feel like work. It really doesn't. I feel almost guilty. I'm like, this, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like so amazing. Just being able to like share love of animation to students and demonstrate like how to animate and draw. Like it really does not feel like work to me. I love it so much. I mean, it is hard work. Let's be clear. It's hard work, but I'm just saying, like, when I'm in it, it's like, yeah, I'm having such a great time. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I have like two prominent moments thus far from like teaching, like when I taught at Loyola University, New Orleans. I taught a class in the spring. Like I taught Center 4D, and I remember I only had 3 students. Like I had 6 at the beginning, but then 3 dropped. But I remember one of my students saying, like, "You treat us like normal people, like we're like normal people." Like I don't know. There's maybe this like, particularly at like a Loyola University, like which is like I think a Catholic, university or something like that. But just the normal way professors act. And then I just was like, well, I'm just going to talk to you like this. I don't know. It just was like, you got to treat us like people. Like, that's not like students, but like people.
Yeah, like not like talking down to them or just like, hey, look, this is the deal,
Yeah. And then another time before that was like, I tutored a guy, he was like a junior, senior in high school when I was tutoring him. And I tutored him and taught him like Maya. And he had like Asperger's. And I remember like the journey of like at the beginning when we're opening Maya and, you have to like rotate around the scene. And, sometimes when you're teaching initially, like your student is like trying to do something and like go at the side. I'm like, you could just rotate it. Like, why are you doing this? Like, they're like trying to get to the side. And I'm like, rotate it. Like you could like, zoom in. And then like having to like tell him all that stuff in the beginning, but then several months later, him just like naturally doing stuff that makes sense. And I'm like, I taught him that.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah. That's what I like about teaching. Yeah.
There was a student recently that, oh God, who was I talking to recently where they got into like an internship, and I was like, their portfolio, they got in on the strength of stuff they did in my class. Mm-hmm. And I am 100% making this about me. I'm so happy. And then a few days ago, I just kind of, my very good friend, Emmett Goodman, we got him. He's at City College now teaching animation. And so sometimes like he's there, I'll just bogart his class. I'll just come in and be like, oh, what y'all are going on? So he was showing me the class, and I hung out. He was showing the work of this wonderful student, Erica. And he says, I really like how Erica animated this character walking. And I said, oh, I told her everything I know, what can I say? He had a good teacher. Yeah. Of course, I'm like making it all about me. No, 100%. There is no shame. I 100% make it about me because I'm like, because of like, not that I'm like selfish and diminishing what the student did, but I'm making it about me because I'm like, I'm so proud. Oh God, yes, that was my.
And then like somebody can be inspired to take your class because they know you were the teacher.
And there's one fun thing I do too is sometimes my classes like take on a party atmosphere because at any one time I'll have 2 to 3 to 4 extra students in my class just like coming in and like what are you working on, and I like a lot of times, unless they're being like really disruptive or whatever, I'll be like, oh yeah, guys, get out, but I let people hang out, like I'm like, hey, come in, you want to see what we're working on? And so sometimes I have students that will have 1 or 2 friends and say, hey, can we hang out, Professor Pilar? I'm like, yeah, come on in. And then next thing you know, those students that I let hang out are taking my class next semester. And it's just kind of fun. I love having like this open door policy of teaching, I kind of had to rein it in last year because of the coronavirus, of COVID, and I realized like, you can't have too many people at once, et cetera. But like, I've sort of like, I brought back my open door policy. I'm like, visit, like, are you, and then I'm like, so how come I haven't had you yet? And like, what do you mean? I'm like, so are you dropping by because you're interested in animation? How come I haven't had you? Am I gonna get you next semester? Well, I don't know. I gotta talk to my advisor. I'm like, okay, well, check it out. Like, go hang out and watch it. Maybe you'll like it. And then a lot of times I'll have students, like those same students that I made feel welcome, like they'll take my class.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, at least 4 or 5 students that I have now are students that their friends told them about, and they came and visited my class like last fall. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, when I was tutoring that kid, like when he went to college, they were like, "Oh yeah, he's like 2 semesters ahead," and I was like, I didn't even tutor him every Saturday, so that was cool. That I like taught him enough to be 2 semesters ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, you had part. Yeah, you had part of it. Like actually, I actually tutored. Oh, crap, is it raining? Sorry. You know, they say like the weather is like throwing out like temperatures, like Powerball numbers. Yeah, it's 13 degrees now. It's 50 degrees, but it's raining. But now, you know. Yeah. But no, I was actually tutoring a good friend of mine. I tutored her son for a year. Before I got too busy with City College, and then I just grad school, City College and grad school, and then I was just had to stop doing it. And I actually miss working with kids. So I mentor. I always make sure I'm like mentoring at least one or 2 kids at any one time if I have time. Yeah. But it was really cool, and like her son like really just loved. He's not even necessarily interested in animation, but just animating and, you know, implementing that focus that it takes to sit down and animate. I feel like it's like really great.
That's something I want to do with my platform, is like not only encouraging animation as a career, but as a hobby. Like you don't have to go into it. It could be a hobby.
Yeah. I tell students in my class on the first day, I'm like, you don't have to feel like you want to go into animation. You might take this class and decide animation is not for you, but at least it's, you know, at least it's something, you know. Yeah, at least it's like something that like, you know, you're you know, oh, you experienced it, you know. Plus you have a really cool portfolio. So I love it so much.
My last question is, if someone was producing a documentary about you, what things would you want them to highlight outside of your work in animation?
Outside of my work in animation? Holy cow, that's like, does teaching count, or is that animation because I'm teaching animation?
Outside of teaching and where you work in animation.
Oh my God. I'm trying to figure out like what is, I think maybe, you know, back to what you were saying, like maybe my upbringing, because I've been having like and we're Facebook friends, right? Because just going like social media. Ooh, should I be talking about social media? But I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been posting all these pictures from my childhood. Yeah. And all these drawings from my childhood. And that's not animation, those are just regular drawings. But it's weird. Maybe it's because it's like post-pandemic, and but I've been having like and I've been reconnecting with like friends from high school and stuff. I've been having kind of a reckoning of sorts where I've been pulling out photo albums and looking back on my life and saying, oh wow, look at, you know, I remember you know, like looking back on junior high school or photos from when I was a kid. And I have just a lot of just really interesting stories to tell. And I really loved my upbringing, you know. It was so, you know, nothing's perfect, but you know, what is, but you know, my parents gave me just an amazing upbringing. My mom gave me just, and it still does, this amazing sense of self. And so basically, and I'm starting that a little bit now, animated documentary. So I guess my upbringing, that would be growing up in Brooklyn, what it was like, you know, growing up in Brooklyn, being a kid in Brooklyn in the 80s, playing with firecrackers and not getting your hand blown off. Like how am I still standing? There's so many times I could have like gotten like run into the middle of the street, pick up a Frisbee like a foot away from oncoming cars. Like New York City in the 80s, like how like so many times I could have easily died. I just didn't, you know. So I feel like I've been having like a reckoning of sorts lately. And I sort of like think that like, I just having, I think that's, my upbringing. I think I lived an amazing life and still do because I'm still in Brooklyn. So, you know, I'm living the life.
So where can people follow you?
You know, I've been, you know, most of my work lately, and this sounds crazy, like because my website is definitely in need of an upgrade, but so you could find me on Instagram, like Pilar Tunes, like PILARTOONS, like at Pilar Tunes. And you could also find me at www.pilartunes.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. But you know, if you really want to say hi and follow me and see what I've been up to, I update Instagram a lot, and I'm just always on there. I mean, not always, like I do things and work and get stuff done, and I'm not. See if my boss is watching this. He's like, always on there, Pilar. No. So stay in touch at Pilar Tunes. And actually anything that has an at, you could at me anywhere. Twitter, Tumblr. My Tumblr sucks and I never touch it. So you know, what are the other ats? I don't have a TikTok, that's the only thing. And you could also find me, I have a page on Facebook, and one of these days I'll actually update it. So just hit me up on Instagram. Yeah.
So I want to thank you for allowing me to highlight you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I feel really honored. And I want to big up your platform too. So
thank you. I appreciate it. So to everyone out there, I want you to like so I know it's real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Citadel, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Bye.